Hello and welcome to the West Asia Post. I am Ghadi Francis and this is our weekly show where we bring you all the latest updates and stories from West Asia. Today our top story is about the country I'm currently standing in, Lebanon. Lebanon and Israel agreed on their maritime border. The United States brokered a deal between them. Now, how will this deal benefit both? And what are the challenges? Skepticism has been flowing around Israel and Lebanon. To find out more about this deal, we sat down with the man of the hour, the head Lebanese negotiator, Elias Saab, who's the Deputy Speaker of the Parliament and the former Minister of Defense, gave us this exclusive interview. Listen in. Thank you for having us, Mr. Deputy. The first question that comes to my mind, everyone is touting this deal as historic. Why? Why is it a historic deal?
It's a historic deal because we have never seen a deal between two countries. One of them, which is Lebanon, considers Israel as an enemy and we don't recognize the existence of that country. And then we negotiate indirectly through a third party without recognizing each other. We have to establish a border, a maritime border, and agree that this is our border and agree that we will have to provide an opportunity to finalize the economic blocks of both sides and allow each side to work on the economic blocks in the sea. It's historic because we have never seen a case like that in history.
But first I must ask, the whole world is looking at Hezbollah's role. What was Hezbollah's role during the negotiations? Did it help? Did it cause problems? As we all know, and we have previously reported about the drones that were active during the negotiations. Could you elaborate on that part? What was Hezbollah's role?
In the direct negotiation, they had no role. Okay. But the presence of Hezbollah in Lebanon was a factor that helped Lebanon in the negotiation, because they are a force that exists and they could be a threat if the other side decided to start producing their gas and object if Lebanon is to do the same. They realized that for them to be able to move forward, they must find a solution for Lebanon as well. That existence of the Hezbollah in this particular situation facilitated, if you wish, the deal to move forward. But they didn't have any direct involvement in the negotiation. All we knew from the president that I am representing on this file is that the only discussion that they've had with Hezbollah is related to where the Lebanese border as it's set by the Lebanese government is. And as long as we are protecting that border, they did not want to get involved in any economical discussions or negotiations or any sort of that.
Okay, so as a viewer, especially the global viewer, they hear many headlines with Hezbollah. And now we cannot really dismiss that the deputy of Hezbollah said that we cannot call it a deal until it is signed in Al-Naqura, and then we can speak about it. So then again, Mr. Abu Saab, since you've been on the top lead from Lebanon's side, when do you expect that to happen? When will it be signed?
We expect that this will take place during the last week of October, that the both sides would be able to sign those letters, and then once we sign those letters, we are not signing an agreement or international agreement between two countries. What we are doing basically, we're depositing a letter with the American side. The Israelis are doing the same thing. They're sending a letter as well confirming the acceptance of the offer of the United States. So each country individually would send those letters to the United States, and then we go deposit them under the flag of the United Nations in Naqura, hand it to the American side, and then give a copy and deposit a copy with the United Nations. This is the deal that took place, because we cannot, two countries that don't recognize each other, they can't have a treaty, international treaty with each other. We can't have an agreement or international agreement with each other. So that was the solution found, and I think during the last week of October, that exchange will take place.
How will it change, or what would it affect the political status quo in both countries? As we all know now, there are voices the ex-PM in Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, has been really furious about that deal. Also, other political entities inside Israel have been furious. Inside Lebanon, there are some voices as well. But how will it affect the coming government in Lebanon and in Israel?
As for Israel, I believe yes. I believe Netanyahu is trying to score, in the election, in the upcoming election of Israel. Had he been in this position, he would have done the same. Because according to the Israeli Prime Minister, he wants to secure that the economy remains strong and untouched. He wants to secure stability and wants to make sure that there's no threat, in terms of serious threat that may affect the stability or the safety of the people that are living in the northern part of Israel. What more can secure this than a stable border where Lebanon is really extracting gas from our side and the Israelis are extracting gas from their side? We want to make sure it's stable and we are working fine to produce what we need to produce for the stability of Lebanon and for the future and the prosperity of Lebanon, and they would be doing the same. What is the alternative to that? War? Is that what they're looking for? That's why I think this is all due to the election. When the election finishes and it ends, you will see that they have no choice but to go back, even if they stop it and they don't sign it. They'll have no choice but going back to this deal. Lebanon is not going to accept less than that. And Lebanon have the means to make sure that there will be no gas extracted from the other side if Lebanon is not extracting gas from our side. For that reason, that deal took place. And I want to end by saying one thing. The alternative to that is a catastrophe for the region. They know that, and we know that. So we're looking at the positive side, and that's why it's a game changer.
So we're going to end on that note with you. Thank you, Mr. Abu Saab, for having us. You can watch the full interview on YouTube, on WION app, and on all our social media platforms. Thank you. You can watch the full interview on WION's platforms and social media, and also on the WION app. Now, before we go forward with our stories for this edition of the West Asia Post, we must take a look at what's making the headline across the region.
Iraq's parliament elects Kurdish politician Abdul Latif Rashid as president. Rashid invites Mohammed Shia al-Sudani to form the government. Sudani has 30 days to form a cabinet and present it to parliament for approval. Turkish parliament approves a new disinformation law. Under the new law, journalists can be jailed for up to 3 years if they are found to have spread fake news. Russian President Vladimir Putin tells his Turkish counterpart Recep Tayyip Erdogan that Moscow could consider developing a gas hub in Turkey. Rival Palestinian factions, including Hamas and Fatah, sign a reconciliation deal after mediation talks in Algiers. The groups agreed to hold legislative and presidential elections within 1 year. Israeli forces kill a 20-year-old Palestinian man during a raid on the occupied West Bank city of Jenin. At least 117 Palestinians have been killed in the West Bank this year. Saudi Arabia denies any anti-US motive behind the OPEC Plus oil production cuts last week. Riyadh says the decision was taken purely on economic considerations.
Since we're talking about oil interests, let's take a look at what's happening between Saudi Arabia and the United States. The U.S. is furious about OPEC's decision to cut oil production. President Joe Biden has spoken of reevaluating relations with Riyadh. American lawmakers want to stop supplying weapons to Saudi Arabia. Let's take a look.
Last week, Saudi Arabia decided to slash oil production. This came as a blow to U.S. interests. On the domestic front, the U.S. is gearing up for an election. The midterms will take place in November. A fuel price rise is the last thing U.S. Democrats need. It may just cost them control over the Senate. On the international stage, a rise in oil prices benefits Russia. Ukraine's allies have imposed sanctions on Russian oil and gas. The plan was to drain Russia's war chest, to make the Ukraine war unaffordable. But a rise in the cost of fuel will help fund Russia's war. Saudi Arabia and the Gulf nations have implemented oil cuts. This is despite the U.S. wanting them to keep production stable. U.S. President Joe Biden had even gone to Saudi Arabia in July to secure an oil deal. Nothing came of that meeting. Relations between the U.S. and its traditional Gulf allies seem to be deteriorating. On Tuesday, the UAE's president met Russian President Vladimir Putin in St. Petersburg. The American fist-bump diplomacy seems to have failed. The US has vowed there will be consequences. After the OPEC Plus decision to cut oil output, Biden said he was surveying his options. The US says this is because OPEC Plus is aligning with Russia.
Well, we believe by the decision that OPEC Plus made last week, there certainly are aligning themselves with Russia. And right now, this is not a time to be aligning with Russia, especially with this brutal, unprecedented war that they have started in Ukraine. And we have been very clear about that. The president has been very clear about that since the beginning of this war. And so this action that they took, this decision that OPEC Plus made last week, proves that that's where they are aligning their energy policy is with Russia.
So, what could the consequences be? US senators have been suggesting that arms sales to Saudi Arabia could stop. The senators have said that going forward, only the arms needed to protect Americans and American interests could be supplied. The US has troops stationed in Saudi Arabia. The defense ties are to protect Riyadh's oil production, especially from Iranian attacks. How much will Washington be willing to compromise the region's security? The US has said it will continue to keep a watch on Iran.
There are security challenges, some of which emanate from Iran, certainly. We won't take our eye off the threat that Iran poses, not only to the region, but in some ways beyond. You have seen us separate and apart from any single bilateral relationship we have with the region, respond and take action, in some cases multilaterally, in some cases unilaterally, against the malign actions and malign influence that Iran has perpetrated, that Iran has attempted to export.
Saudi Arabia says that the US is overreacting. It justifies the production cuts, saying it was done to stabilize the oil markets. A Saudi finance consultant explained the kingdom's stance.
Oil is a commodity, not a tool or weapon for the political process. Therefore, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, being one of the members of OPEC, has taken the decision unanimously in the organization and considered that it is in the interest of the market at the present time to reduce production. And this was unanimously done by the OPEC countries. And oil prices rising or decreasing is the result of the supply and demand, and this is controlled by the market, not the members.
Saudi Arabia says it maintains a neutral position on the Russia-Ukraine war. However, the decision to cut oil will benefit Russia. Relations between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia have soured. Now the world braces for Washington's response to Riyadh's defiance.
Political turmoil continues to grip Iraq. Disagreements have rendered the parliament ineffective. Now lawmakers want to break the legislative deadlock. But is a new president the solution? Let's find out more about what's happening in Iraq. Take a look.
Iraq is one step closer to breaking its political deadlock. MPs have chosen a new president, Abdul Latif Rashid. He has named Mohammed Shia al-Sudani the Prime Minister designate. Al-Sudani now has 30 days to form a cabinet and present it to Parliament for approval.
I was honored today to be tasked with the formation of a new Iraqi government from the President, Abdul Latif Rashid. And I'm moving forward with the support of our people who braved pain and endured the greatest of sacrifices.
Rashid served in multiple governments. He was water minister in the transition period after the fall of Saddam Hussein. He has also been active in Kurdish politics for decades. Iraq has a system to avoid sectarian conflicts. The president will be Kurdish. The deputy speaker of parliament will be Sunni. And the prime minister will be Shiite. The system was conceived as a way to ensure all three major communities are represented. The post of president is largely ceremonial in Iraq, but it serves an important purpose at this juncture. The president can invite the largest party to form the government. Elections were held in October 2021, but a political impasse meant that no party could take the reins. Iraq has been under an interim government for more than a year. The president's election brings Iraq one step closer towards stability, and it almost didn't happen. This was Iraq's fourth attempt to choose a president this year. Protests and violence hampered the last three tries. Thursday, too, saw attacks. Rockets were fired into Baghdad's green zone. This is the area which houses diplomatic enclaves and government buildings. At least 10 people were injured in the attacks. Iraqi MPs had to brave rocket fire to cast their votes. However, enough MPs showed up to hold the election. Rashid won the election with 160 votes against 99 for incumbent President Barham Saleh. So what is the cause of the violence? Why has Iraq been unable to form a government for so long? The answer lies in the results of the last election. The single largest party to have emerged was the Sadr movement. Its MPs were followers of Shiite cleric Muqtada al-Sadr. The Sadr movement had promised not to tie up with any Iran-backed Shiite parties. The goal was to limit Iranian influence in Iraq's politics. Though the Sadr movement had the most MPs, the second largest grouping was of Iran-backed parties. Together, they are known as the Coordination Framework. Both groups refused to work with each other, but neither had enough MPs to form the government. In June, the 73 Sadr movement MPs resigned. Muqtada al-Sadr wanted to have snap elections, give people a chance to deliver a clearer mandate. But after his MPs withdrew, Iraq's parliament appointed 73 others. This gave the coalition framework 130 lawmakers. After this, al-Sadr's followers took to the streets. They breached Baghdad's green zone. Camped outside Parliament, they even entered the Parliament building to stop proceedings, and the violence came to a head in late August. Al-Sadr announced he would be quitting politics on the 29th of August. His supporters rallied in response to his announcement. They stormed the presidential palace in Baghdad. Numerous rockets were fired at the green zone. Militias that backed the coordination framework clashed with al-Sadr supporters. At least 30 people lost their lives that day. Violence in Iraq has been sporadic since. It occurs when some political developments are underway, like a vote on the Deputy Speaker of Parliament on the 28th of September, or the election of the President on Thursday. Iraq's interim government has limited powers. It is not empowered to deliver a budget. While Iraq has earned good revenues from oil exports this year, the money lies unallocated. The people of Iraq have been suffering without leadership. If a new government does take over, it will help provide stability to Iraq. The election of the new president is just the first step. West Asia Bureau, WION World is One.
The world celebrated Prophet Muhammad's birthday last weekend. Now, celebrations took place all over West Asia as well. Each country has its own tradition. Let's take a look at how the region celebrated the occasion.
Last weekend, the world celebrated Prophet Muhammad's birthday. It's known as Maulid an-Nabawi, Eid Milad-un-Nabi, or simply Maulid. The Prophet Muhammad was born on this day in the year 570 CE. The day is celebrated with great fanfare by Muslims across the world, especially in West Asian nations, and this year was no different. Hundreds marched in the holy city of Jerusalem. People thronged to pray at the Al-Aqsa Mosque. A second band played celebratory music in the background. In Dubai, a light show took place at the Expo City. A 22-member band performed the traditional religious songs. A local dance performance mesmerized the audience. People spoke about how significant the day was to them.
Actually, it means a lot because being a religious guy, I know because it means a lot. Prophet Muhammad's day means it's like our own birthday.
Drums were beaten in the Kurdistan region of Iraq. People flocked to the city's ancient citadel. Where a giant sign with the Prophet's name was hung up. An imam from the area spoke about the local celebrations.
Erbil and since Sultan Muzaffar's time have been celebrating the Prophet's birthday, peace be upon him. All people, including women, men, children, sheikhs and mullahs are coming out to pray and commemorate the event in the way that you see.
Even war-torn Yemen celebrated Maulid with aplomb. Thousands gathered in Sana'a for an event organized by Houthi rebels. A sea of green flags was seen in the streets. This isn't to say that there was an end to the tensions in the region. Some clashes took place in Jerusalem. The turmoil in Iran did not stop. Yemen saw celebrations mixed with anti-government rhetoric. The volatility in the region has not subsided. But Maulid is a reminder that people can find a way to come together and celebrate. West Asia Bureau WION, World is One.
West Asia is not without its share of culture, beauty and oddities. In our next segment, Curiosities, we bring you some heartwarming stories from the region.
What is important about this discovery is the scene portrayed is rich in details. This includes the clothes they wore, their weapons, the animals such as the horses they're riding on, faces, masks and armor.
It could possibly be a very important heritage city for tourism, and Rastan historically is an important city and part of an important kingdom. The initial discovery was incredible, and there is a lot of hope of other discoveries ahead if we get help from everyone concerned.
That's all we have for you on this episode of the West Asia Post. I will see you next week with a brand new lineup, bringing you more stories from the world's most volatile region. Until then, stay safe. I am Ghadi Francis, and you're watching WION World is One.